But yes, but actually, the idea, the first thought of Murder by Tide came from a book set in the same place, same tide, by Helen McGinnis.
Right.
And I cannot remember the name.
Is it Assignment in Brittany?
Yes, it is. It's Assignment in Brittany. And there was a scene where a German soldier is caught in the tide.
That's
and I
right.
thought, gee, this is a great scene. You know, can I somehow make this central? You know,
Can I steal it?
Oh.
Well, it was Mont
No, but
Saint-Michel.
it's really different. And then I did go to Mont Saint-Michel,
Sure.
of course, myself and observe it. But the idea came from what a lovely setting for lovely for a murder. Yeah.
Well, it is, and you know, you tie it to World War II, and in fact, here we are again. You've done 3 art mysteries with Chris Norgren, Deceptive Clarity, Old Scores, and
Glancing
Light. And you've got a guy who is an art. Is he a curator or a museum director? I'm trying to remember.
In the Chris Norgren series, he's a curator.
Okay, and he's from Seattle.
Yes.
But
he's the curator of Baroque and Renaissance art. I've made him that to attract the macho trade, I thought, for book review.
Or to reflect your own personal interest, however it goes. But anyway, you've got him in those 3 books, and I guess you started that series, what, after Old Bones or around there where you...
Just before, when I was kind of giving up on Gideon Oliver, having felt that, you know, how many things can you do about bones? Well, I found out, there's a few things I hadn't thought of at the time.
That's true. But anyway, we have Chris, and he's doing some. They're all based on some thread in the art world. They all draw their weave the warp and woof of their plots from threads connected with European art, and very often don't they all have some link to the World War II?
There's a piece of it, yes, a link. Never in those books, not a central link, but always a link.
It's kind of hard to talk about European art today without reference to the incredible dislocations, the provenance questions, where are they hidden, etc., all resulting from the wholesale Nazi confiscation of art. But now your new book, Loot, you've brought in a new guy, Ben Revere, who is, again, an art curator, but he's in Boston?
Yeah, and he's sort of between jobs and he's in Boston and sort of at a point in his life where he's not quite sure where he wants to go.
He's waiting for Charlotte.
Yeah, or a Charlotte,
And he finds one.
You know, I'll tell you, you know why people have asked, well, why didn't you just, yes, he does, but not without some ups and downs. People have said, well, why didn't you just, don't you like Chris Norgren? Why don't you just, because Ben Revere is an awful lot like this Chris Norgren character.
He is.
And so the actual answer is, my agent has never liked Chris Norgren. I mean, he sort of pretends to like him, but I can see that he's not very enthusiastic about Chris Norgren as a person. Although I don't necessarily do what my agent wants, you want your agent to be enthusiastic about your books because he's got to go sell them. And so I wanted to write this book, and I wanted to use a Chris Norgren-like character, so I changed his name. And essentially, I've just used Chris Norgren at another stage in his life, given him another name, and my agent loves him.
I am so glad you said that, because, I mean, I felt that I was talking to Chris throughout this book. And do you know what I thought? I thought because you had moved to a brand new publisher, that they had said to you, okay, Elkins, you know, let's go with a new guy, get rid of Norgren. I really did. I mean, I thought, okay, and your answer was you were just going to give Chris a new name and carry right on. So this is very interesting.
Ernest Jones, Ernest Jones, Thin Red Line? No, I got his name slightly wrong, don't I?
Yeah, you do. James
Jones.
James Earl, isn't it James
No,
Earl?
That's the actor.
Oh, that's the actor. Well,
God,
I'm sorry, I don't know.
Yeah, this is a literary program, huh?
Right.
But he had a book after Thin Red Line. And he once said in an interview, all the same characters and just changed their names. And that's all he did. The descriptions were the same, their characters were the same, and he said nobody ever noticed it. I thought, well, if he could do that, I could do it too.
Well, I like Ben. And so here he is in this seedy Boston pawn shop. Usually it's a seedy pawn shop.
Oh, that goes without saying.
Right. And this wonderful old guy that he doesn't really appreciate which is, I think, a nice thing in the book, and often is the case in life, that
Yeah.
the people who are good to us, we don't notice it until
Right.
it's perhaps too late to really acknowledge them, has something that he thinks is remarkable, and Ben skates over there and discovers that it might indeed be a really valuable painting, and that gets you going.
Right.
Why did you find this an interesting story? Where did it come from?
It came from a lot of research, starting at well, you know, as I said, as you said, the Nazi looting had been a link in a lot of books, but it was never the center of that circle, although this is not one of those circular books. And I just needed an idea I wanted an idea that I could write a whole book about this from. And so I did quite a lot of research. I spent days at the National Archives looking through the Nazi records of the hidden art and stolen art, and got a lot of information out of that, enough to know that there was certainly a good book there, and then visited one of the sites where the art was stored at Alto See, which is an alpine salt mine in Austria. And among the things I learned about that salt mine were that they had stored things there systematically throughout the war, very systematically, in true Nazi systematization with everything recorded and tagged. But at the end of the war, the system had broken down. They were moving the art that had been hidden in more prominent places, castles and monasteries, up to this mountain salt mine to get it out of the way of Allied bombing and Allied invasion. Hitler was afraid, thought that he could maybe continue to hide the stuff, which was the best of the art that the Germans had confiscated and plundered and bought, in quotes, from occupied Europe. And we're moving it into this Alto See salt mine where there was still plenty of room. And so one German talks about there being that I saw at the National Archives, talks about there being for 3 weeks steady caravans of trucks coming from different directions up the mountains in the snow, one after the other, 24 hours a day, with all of the Western world's greatest art treasure, bringing them up to the mine. The system fell apart. It was overloaded. Registrars were screaming at the trucks coming in. The truck drivers just wanted to unload and go because the Russians were coming in from the east, and they didn't want to be there when the Russians got there. And there was chaos and confusion, and frenzy. And you used the word "what if" a moment ago, and yeah, I do think that's somewhere that has to be where a work of fiction begins. What if? You know, you take some element of reality and say, but what if it went a different way? And the place it stemmed from, the central idea of the book really, is I thought, coming away from there, what if in all of those thousands of trucks that were pouring up there through the snow, a single truck disappeared into the snowstorm, and that on it was this precious painting, a Rembrandt, of Velázquez, that the truck became the lost truck of legend and mystery. Where is it with its load of art? And just disappeared, dropped out of sight. And then 50 years later, in this seedy Boston pawn shop that you've mentioned, Ben Revere walks in, when called by his friend Simeon, and now your viewers don't have to buy the book. That's the story of loot, or at least that's where it starts.
That's where it starts. And of course the question is, if there is the Velázquez in the pawn shop in Boston, where's the rest of it?
Yeah.
And what really happened? And so Ben is off chasing the history of the painting.
Through the capitals of Europe, as we like to say.
Did a lot of tough research in Vienna, didn't you?
Well, yeah, Budapest was even harder.
Yeah, well, that's the life of the mystery writer. I feel for you out there in the fields, suffering, drinking,
Yes,
cafe mit Schlag. And
thank you, taxpayers. I appreciate it.
it is hard work, actually. And one thing I do know about you, because you came and did a wonderful talk about your art mysteries at a conference we hosted in 1997 called As Murder Goes Artful. And it was clear, watching you deliver this paper and then subsequently editing it for publication, how much you love doing research.
Yeah.
You know, just digging into records and files. And art is really, with you, it's an avocation, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, no, I don't. I've got my credentials in physical anthropology. I've done that stuff. But yeah, art is avocational. Yeah.
And how nice that, you're doing something now that allows you to explore it.
But my work is, I'll stand by it. It's accurate, and